So even prior to on camera, did you have a professional gig doing something else in entertainment, or was it
I've
like?
been acting since I was 3 years old. So
Oh, okay.
to me, professional is such an interesting word because people say it's professional job once you get paid.
Yeah.
And then so then I look at my entire career, and from when I was 3 and just studied acting and was acting and didn't know what acting was, just was creating characters because I'm a character actor.
Yep.
And so I've always created characters. I performed in whatever I could, whatever anybody would put me in, really. I didn't care. I didn't care if it was at somebody else's church. I didn't care if it was at school. I didn't care if it was at a drama camp, a drama club. I didn't care if I wrote it myself
Yep.
and performed it for neighborhood people and charged them for it. Technically, that's professional. A young producer, director. So I did whatever I could, whenever I could. So I don't have a moment where I'm like, now I'm a professional. I did go to University of Victoria and I studied acting specialization. And the way that the university program is in Victoria, anyway, I don't know what it is in the rest of the world, but had to audition to get in. And
Okay.
there were hundreds of people auditioning to get in. You had to do the regular formal university application, plus you had to audition to get in.
Yeah.
70 there was like 70 students that got in for the first year, and then you had to audition to get into second year
Oh,
to a
wow.
university course.
Yeah.
And so that went down by a dramatic amount, and then you had to be accepted for third year and accepted again for fourth year. So we were
Wow.
losing people every year. I think we ended up with 7 of us by fourth year. I made it all the way to fourth year, which I took as an encouraging sign.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't say I was particularly good then. I was definitely green. I was so green. I probably wasn't good. I probably sucked, but I didn't care. I had all the energy in the world, and I was around such talented people, and that felt like working. I was up at 7 a.m. every morning. I'd go to bed at 3 a.m. every night, and I spent the whole day acting. It was a lot of acting,
Right.
because you have to put in those hours of practice to get good. So that was all theater. I
Yep.
know I did summer shows. Those were paid. That counts as professional. I worked as a historical interpreter, which was being in a costume, being an 1880s character in these historical houses. That was technically a professional acting gig. I did live theater for radio shows back then. That was a professional acting gig. I graduated from university in Victoria, and then I moved to Vancouver,
Yep.
where I got a gig with a theater troupe that was a radio play theater troupe. Which was great. And then I decided I should probably try the on-camera stuff too, because I was young and thin, and in the 90s, it was really, really boring roles for women my age at that time, and it was so boring. I was either everybody just kind of like Barbie, everything's perfect,
Yeah.
or you were a hooker or a drug addict. Those were
Yeah.
the choices. And since I wasn't into being the ingenue, I never was, not even in university was I interested in being the leading lady, because all the leading lady roles looked painfully boring to me.
Right.
So I was after those hooker and drug addict roles, and I booked them. Yes, nailed it. But my first on-camera thing, I think, was a beer commercial.
Oh,
I did
okay.
a beer commercial. I don't drink beer at all,
Okay.
but I did Canadian beer commercial. I think I did a Labatt's and a Molson's. I remember my parents lived in Toronto at the time, and my mom called me. There was no cell phones. My mom called me and it's like, I just saw you were a giant poster in the subway, and it was like this huge beer ad, and that's my daughter,
Yeah.
which was, I guess, one of those feelings where I'm like, I'm a professional now, question mark.
Yeah.
Still didn't feel like I was a professional. Booked television, like local Canadian television and films. Well, not guess X-Files isn't local, and
Yeah.
Josie and the Pussycats was a film I did, and and I learned the whole I mean, television acting is a different stuff. It's all acting, right? Because you're being a character,
Yep.
and you need your character to fit into that universe. But on camera acting, you can't move. Like, you can't move your body, you can't move your face. You have to stand very still, and everything is with your eyes. Everything is with your eyes. Whereas on stage, you use your body, your voice, you use everything for on stage. Theater acting is the most well-rounded overall training somebody can get, because you can do everything from theater acting. So to go from comedic, I did a lot of, like, I toured before I moved to Vancouver. I was touring comedy shows, and you know, a lot of, I like sketch comedy, I like character acting. I was surrounded by incredibly talented, funny people, and if you look at the most famous comedians in the world, you'll notice they're Canadian, except for Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, we're just a funny group of people stuck in a cold country. So that's, having to squish it all in for on camera, I found very challenging. It was fun to learn. I took classes and I booked stuff, but there was so much waiting around. Like, I remember being on set. It's like 4:00 in the morning. Like, they kept saying we were going to wrap at midnight, and then 1, and then 2, and then 3. And I'd been like, it's freezing in Canada. We don't shoot until 4:45. We're all exhausted. Our faces have melted. I don't care about acting at this point. I'm like, I didn't understand the people who were obsessed with getting into television film acting.
Yeah.
I had a really difficult time with the schedule that they keep, because I like to sleep. I'm a big fan of it.
Right.
I like to sleep by, you know, midnight for sure. I'm up by 7. I like a regular schedule with my body. So television and film was brutal. And you also don't get the glorious opportunity to stay in character, because you're like, you do your scene and then they have to set up for the next shot, and that can take an hour. So you're in the trailer most of the day, a 16-hour day, but you're only performing maybe a couple of hours out of it.
Yep.
That depressed me, because I understood why a lot of actors for TV and film choose the method technique of acting, because they want to stay in the character the whole time so that they don't have to pop in and out, because there's so much technical stuff that happens. You're popping in and out of character all the time on set. So that one it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't my favorite. And then it was, and because I wasn't being used for the capacity of what I am capable of in terms of character work, because I was so limited by how I looked. So if I had my short brown hair and really, really skinny and my age, that's the roles they want to book me in. I don't get to be, you know, like the metal monster, or like, women did not have the opportunities that they currently have. They were not writing roles that they are currently for girls. And the guys got all the really juicy stuff, and it was really annoying. And so I got into working behind the microphone for television and film first. I had a friend who was working, they're called loop groups, and it was in Vancouver, and he said that they needed a woman who could do accents, which I'm natural at. And so I showed up to the job, and there's all these incredibly talented, hilarious comedic actors. And we were working on a show called Outer Limits, which was a sci-fi series. And it was Alyssa Milano, who at the time had been famous for her years on Who's the Boss, had kind of gone into in her teen years. She wasn't working so much, or it was awkward, because again, like I said, they were not writing good female characters at that time. Women were sexualized, girls were sexualized, everything was all based around sex, right? So it was kind of boring to me as an actor, and I'm sure to her too. And she had just gotten herself done. So she was ready to go on screen and show it off. And I was given the task of doing her breathing. That was a paid job, to breathe and do her fighting sounds all behind a microphone. So it's like, you know, like, that's it, you know, that type of a thing. And then she had a sex scene. And I'm, you know, a girl from Canada in my 20s. And you know, Canadians we're funny, but we're not body, you know, not so much, at least not in a formal professional setting, you know, with people you don't know.
Yeah.
So I am given the task to act with another guy. His name was Michael Dobson, who is now also a very famous voice actor.
Yeah.
So he and I we didn't know each other. We're staying behind the mic, and we are breathing the sex scene that's playing out in front of us. I'm breathing for Alyssa. He's breathing for the male counterpart. And so we're very awkwardly getting through this scene. And then he and I, we have this natural rapport of ridiculousness. So we start taking the piss in between takes, right, to get through it. So we start, you know, joking around and playing off each other and jumping into any other character just to feel like he'd go into, well, what we going to do here? I don't know, but I'm very dirty. I feel very naughty right now. You know, and we just go into that, and we just started improvising off of each other. And for every character he switched, I matched him. Because we had that kind of a chemistry, acting wise. And at the end of that session, he turned to me and he said, "How come you're not doing cartoons?" And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean?" He's like, "How come you're not acting in cartoons?" I'm like, "I don't, you know, Papa Smurf, He-Man." I'm like, and at the moment hit me where I'm like, "Are you telling me Papa Smurf isn't Papa Smurf?"
Right.
He-Man isn't He-Man. Like, it never occurred to me, never, in all of my years of acting and performing, and all of my years, I mean, thousands of hours watching cartoons, it never occurred to me it was actors acting those cartoon characters. I had I believe they were real up until my 20s, up until that moment. And it never occurred to me that Papa Smurf wasn't a real being in itself. So that moment was kind of like a shock to my system. Yep. And then when he started naming the actors who played them, I was like horrified because I knew some of them. I'm like, no, I don't want to know. That's not true. That's impossible. Yeah. But the excitement hit the next day when I'm like, wait a second, that makes me make sense. Yep. Because my ability to do all of these characters didn't make sense to me because I had no place to use them. Mm-hmm. Because there was nobody writing that kind of stuff. It just wasn't accessible. So then I made a voice demo that actually came to me in the dream state. I had dreamed what my voice demo should be. And this is in the 90s. Again, nobody had home recording studios. Nobody had the technology we had. We didn't have internet. We didn't have cell phones. It was really like I didn't have any information on where to go and how to start. Yeah. really. Like there was really no information. So I got it in the dream state, how to make a demo and what my demo should be. I woke up and I wrote down the characters in the order that the dream told me to do them. And then Michael's brother, Brian, who was just starting out at his own voiceover career, he and I became fast friends. And he produced my demo. I was like, I need to make a demo. Do you know how? He's like, no, but we'll figure it out together. I'm like, yes, I have it written. So he and I, we rented a sound studio and we figured out, we cobbled together my first demo. And then he and I got an audition for our first cartoon. And I got my first agent was my first voiceover agent was, I think, Mike Dobson's mother-in-law.
Oh, wow.
Like, that's how we kept it in the family. We just kept it in the family. The Dobsons I consider family. Cool. And then I remember I had like this machine. It was like this old little square machine. And Brian came over to my house. And I think we had a handheld little, nub of a mic thingy. And we recorded our auditions for a new show called Ed, Edd, and Eddy on a channel that was brand new, that was going to start playing cartoons 24/7, which nobody had ever heard of. What? Cartoons 24/7? That's crazy. Yeah. And of course, we didn't get the channel in Canada. So I'm like, America gets all the good stuff. Canada doesn't have it, at least not at that time. And so we auditioned in my living room on little tapes that we would send in, because there was, we weren't emailing yet, really. It was so old-fashioned to think about it. And then it was like the 6-month process of Danny was not happy with any of the submissions, so he fired like the casting directors like twice, and
Yeah.
I kept getting called back for May Kanker, and eventually I booked it. And then all of a sudden my life made sense. Everything that I had done in theater, everything I'd done as a kid, all the sketch comedy, even the television stuff made more sense once I booked into cartoons. Once that started making sense. And I like cartoons and video games better than on camera, just because I could use my whole body again. Wasn't stuck to just acting behind the eyes, because like David Duchovny in X-Files created this entirely new style of acting that we have not shaken ever since. Like, it has been this David Duchovny style. I call it whisper acting. Because they're mic'd so right here. I walked down the street and then I saw her. Like, when I was acting across from David Duchovny in X-Files for my two little lines that I had as a waitress, I couldn't hear a word he was saying because he was mumbling his lines. And there was all these rumors at the time that him and Scully, that they weren't getting along at all. And I'm like, what? Jillian's so nice. Why would they be like? But when I was standing in front of him and he was mumbling his lines and I couldn't hear him, I'm like, oh, this is what pisses her off. She can't hear a word he's saying. Yeah. He hijacks the scene because it becomes, you have to lean in to hear him. I'm like, oh, you sneaky sucker. So, and I'm not a whisper actor. Obviously, if you know my work, I am loud and boisterous and annoying for many, which you're welcome. And he was so quiet. And so it was such a great opportunity. I have had really good times. Like, there was a movie when we did the Josie and the Pussycat movie. Yeah. I got like this cast as this role as slang team leader was the name. And it was this huge set. And like all these sets had like all these different, like, it was this huge wall and each one had a section. So there was like 2 people to each section, and it was hundreds of us, and it wrapped around. It was just this really big thing. Yeah. And so I had a tiny little scene, and I was paired up with this other actress who was also very excited. And again, because you have all day to sit and wait, so they were doing each block at a time, shooting their scenes. And so it was going to be cut to this team leader, this team leader, this team leader, this team leader. And then when they got to us, we had all day with our 5 little lines. Yeah. And we had come up with some ridiculous stuff with it, because you give 2 creative people a lot of time to rehearse and improv. We started doing a lot of ridiculous stuff. So we were having a great time. We were shooting our 5 lines, and we could hear that the crew was cracking up, the director was cracking up, everybody was laughing. We had a live audience, and we were in the pocket of comedy, and we were having such a great time. And we got to do it a multitude of different ways. And then they were like, oh, and then you could do this. And they were throwing us ideas. So we became this great improv session with me, this amazing actress, and the crew and the producer, everything. It was really fun. At the end of the day, I'm walking on, this is the most I've ever done on camera. I'm like, oh, what a great day. I'm walking off, people are high-fiving me, building, oh, that was amazing. That was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Oh my God, that was so funny, because it was in Canada, right? So everybody had a Canadian accent. Oh, it's so awesome, dude. And high five. I feel like I'm the lady. Woo! Walking down the street, I get home, I'm like flying high. My ego is way up in the sky. And then I get a call. Yeah, they can't use any of that. You need to go in and reshoot tomorrow. I'm like, what? Yeah. And my ego is like, yeah. We show up the next day, and they edit it. All the lines are out. It's just 2 lines. I say something and she says something, and that's it. And it's not that we did anything wrong. Obviously, we did our jobs and we did a good job, but we didn't. It was such a tiny little blip that was meant to just be one tiny edit next to this scene, blip to us, blip to someone else, blip to someone else, that what we had done did not fit the cut, right? It was supposed to be like boop, 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 boop. And it went boop, boop, boop. So that didn't fit. And so when I saw it finally, and I saw how much was left on the editing room floor, that was my first taste of like, this is the worst job ever. You could do something brilliant and they're going to edit it out.
Yeah.
What's the point? And then I think, well, I did entertain a room full of people for that day, and that was worth. And that my theater side was satisfied. I did a live audience; they were never going to see it again. That felt pretty good. That felt
Right.
pretty awesome. I
So,
got really into those kind of performances for a while. Yeah.
well, I was just gonna ask when you were talking about Ed, Edd and Eddy, was there any kind of anxiety with you with that being your first animation thing when you
Yeah.
got, well, I was gonna say
Yeah.
when you had to take over Naz from Tabitha St. Germain.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah. Was that?
Yeah, Tabitha was having she was having a banger of a year. It was like her year. The second season. So the first season they didn't give Naz much to do. Like it
Yeah.
was really next to nothing. And Tabitha had a one-woman show in the biggest playhouse in Vancouver. She was doing Little Voice live, and she was killing it. She was booking. She had all these other cartoons. She was booking. She had live theater shows. She was on fire that year. Her career was phenomenal. And she kept getting called in to stand for 4 hours to do one line with this little girl here, and she didn't know what we didn't see the show because we didn't get it in Canada, so she didn't know anything about whether or not it was popular. She didn't know where it was going, so she just didn't. Her schedule was not going to allow her to waste 4 hours of her day for one line when she was being booked everywhere else. So
Right.
I was really, other than Johnny 2x4 and Rolf, I definitely was the only girl who only had one role. So because the other two they had doubled up, so it was really easy for Danny to throw Naz to me, and Naz is pretty much my Drew Barrymore placement anyway, so we just went right directly. Thank you.
Yeah.
What's with the styling clothes, Eddie? It's Customer Appreciation Day at the candy store, and we're giving away Jawbreakers for free.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, it was a little bit like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do it. But to be fair, Danny is such a perfectionist, and the sessions were so hard because he would storyboard the entire episode before we got it, which was amazing. Not all the cartoons that I've ever worked on did that. So I got to see every frame of everything. So when he would like micro direct. So we had a voice director, but then Danny would micro direct on top of the voice director.
Yeah.
And I was like 7 years in to playing May Kanker and Naz. And I would still show up. I would still show up to the job, and I'd record a line as Naz, and Danny would be like, "No, that's not Naz." I'm like, "Oh my God, that's not Naz." But I've been Naz for 7 years at this point. I think I know what Naz is. He's like, "No, that's not Naz." It was very funny. It was anxiety inducing.
Yeah.
So like each one of us would go through an experience where Danny would ride us for one line. Like we would take 80 takes of one line where he'd be like, "No, that's not it. No, that's not it. No, that's not it." Like he wouldn't line read. And the director would start line reading and be like, "Try it this way, try it this way, try it this way." We do whatever we can, but it was such a great training ground for someone like me who, went from Canada to America. I was living in America. So having somebody who forced me to go to different parts of my imagination to try to come up with new stuff all the time really helped me become really good at my job, so that when I'm on other projects, and you're on projects all the time where the creator's like, "That's not it." They don't know what they want, but they know that what you just said was not it. So you have to be able to live on the spot and come up with stuff. So he was like the most phenomenal training ground for a beginner voice actor. Like he was able to take me and push my ability to interpret copy in 1,000 different directions, which is very helpful when especially for video games where you don't have a lot of time and you have to get through thousands of lines. It's very helpful.
Yeah, I saw that. I've watched it a bunch of times now, but that ever since it's been on YouTube, there's that behind the scenes like documentary from one of the Ed and Eddy video games where it shows all you guys recording together. And I love the camaraderie between you and Kathleen Barr and Janice Joe.
Oh my God, I love her. I
Yeah.
love them. I love them. I miss them. I miss them.
Do you ever
Me
talk
and
to them?
Kathleen, no, not at all. Not at
Oh,
all. I don't see them. They're not really on social media, so it makes
yeah.
it difficult. So if people aren't on social media, and I don't fly up to Canada very often, so I've been here for 20 years in America.
Hmm.
So the people I have talked to online, I have seen Sam Vincent. He's come down here, and I see Peter Kalamis online, and David
Yeah.
Paul I've seen online a couple of times. But yeah, mostly, yeah, they're not here, so I don't see them. I know Peter has a house here. I think he goes back and forth, but again, LA is a big place, so.
And I know at that same time that you did Ed, Edd, and Eddy, your first anime role, I think, must have been Kodachi and Ranma.
I think it was. It was either Kodachi and Ranma or Cherry and Saber Marionette J, but I think
Yeah.
it was Kodachi. I think Kodachi was the first one.
And
Yeah, that was pretty fun.
and that was another case, I think, where you were taking over another.
Oh yeah, and then someone had to take over when I moved to LA too. So yeah,
Yeah.
that happens a lot in Vancouver.
Were you with people that were in the Ranma cast? Some of them weren't in Ed, Edd, and Eddy, but did you know like Sarah Strange and Miriam Serwa very well, or
Well, I knew Sarah Strange because of a TV show we had worked on together. I think it was Madison. I think it was called Madison.
Okay.
I think it's a Canadian teen drama.
Yeah.
I knew her from that, but not closely. But again, anime, you don't record together, right? So
Yeah.
you're in by yourself. So I didn't know who I still to this day, other than the two people you just mentioned, have no idea who the rest of the cast is. I have no idea who else is in that show. And chances are I know all of them because Vancouver's a very small town.
Yeah, well, because I know one of the other main people who was in it that then moved to LA was David Kay.
Oh yeah, I see David. Yeah, I see David
Yeah.
all the time because he lives here. I forget David's Canadian. Oh, and David Sobolov too. David Sobolov and we were in Sabrina the Animated Series together, and he's one of my best friends here. And I forget that we're both Canadian because we live here and we work here. So David Kay, David Sobolov. Yeah, I knew both of them. I knew David. I met David here. I mean, Kay. Sorry, I met David Kay in LA, not in Vancouver. So I don't think of him as Vancouver. And Sobolov, I saw every week going in for that cartoon.
Yeah,
Vancouver.
I think you would probably know for sure, but I think Kathy Wesseluk still lives up there.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, I see her on Twitter sometimes. Yeah, she still lives up there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so many of that group of voice actors for I think it's called the Ocean Group, but so many of you guys, like, there's so many talented people that I wish were like still doing anime, but I know kind of you have to be in LA to do anime now.
No, you don't. It's just really the reason people don't like to do anime in Canada is because it's the worst paying job.
Yeah.
It's just because the pay is so garbage. That's it. That's the reason why people don't want to do anime here. Like when you've got these huge actors who don't do anime, they don't do it not because it's not a great job to do, but because the pay is so terrible. It's not worth it. It's not a decent rate. You can't live off of anime wages in Los Angeles. You can't live in Los Angeles off anime, and you can't live in Vancouver off anime wages. You could never. That's not enough money to survive.
Right.
So yeah, that's why people kind of shy away from. I mean, the popularity. If you want fame and that's all you want, I would say anime is the way to go. But fame does not equate paying your bills.
Yeah. Well,
just because somebody has 10,000 likes on Twitter does not mean that they can pay their rent. I'm just telling you now.
Right. Well, because actually, I'm not sure if you know her or if you knew her, but one of the first voice actor interviews I did was with Katie Griffin.
I don't know Katie Griffin.
Okay, her first voice role was Sailor Mars, and the original dub was Sailor Moon. And
okay, very cool.
And she was talking about how they only got paid $90 per session, and that's like.
And that was in what, 1980? And it's barely more than. Yeah, so barely more than that now, and 25 years later, and it has not really gone up that much.
Yeah, that's crazy. I would never have thought that it was like that low.
Yeah, that's the reason. That's the only reason. Otherwise, everybody would do it.
Yeah. So then, moving on to, was the Sabrina series, was that dubbed up there too?
Not
dubbed.
Yeah, because something that is dubbed is usually it's already animated and
Yeah.
you're recording over another language
Yeah.
and you're matching it to picture. That's a good point, because some people don't know the difference.
Right.
So the only thing that is dubbed is anime and foreign titles.
Yep.
Video games are not dubbed. They're not dubbed. So even though a Japanese video game comes here and we're re-recording it and we call it localizing it here, it's not dubbed, because we don't have to match to picture.
Right.
We get to record freely and it's placed in the game later. So it's not an actual dub. It's called a localization. So you've got dubbing, you've got localizing, and then you've got what's called prelay animation, where you record everything first and then they animate to the recording to match it.
Right.
And that's what Western, like Sabrina the Animated Series was a prelay series. Yeah.
And was that, I know you did a ton of stuff on that show.
I did, I was what's called the utility woman for that show. So basically anything that wasn't a lead character that could be played by me was played by me. I lost count at, I know that was like 62 episodes.
Yep.
And so 2 or 3 characters per episode. So that's like 300 characters. Like I couldn't write them down. There were so many. Couldn't they be like one-off little lines here and there? There were some that I remember because it was so much fun. But every episode, a utility woman that's when you see someone's credits on IMDb and it just says voice, it means they played probably 20 to 30 characters for that project.
Right. And
but you won't remember them.
Was that just totally easy for you to just?
Yes, that's when I found out what I was really made of was that series, because I had unlimited potential. And so all of these thousands of characters that had been coming out of me and annoying all of my friends for all of those years finally had a purpose. They had a place. There was a place for them to live. So I could do this. I could do this. I could do this. It didn't matter. I could just get all the crazy out. All the crazy came out, and they just let me. And they paid me for it. So all of a sudden, all of my almost like hyperactive, loud behavior had a very important purpose to fill out an animated series, because I'm a cartoon person. My natural state is cartoon. So to do a cartoon like Marvel anything or anything serious, I have to bring it down. I have to bring my energy down. I gotta think of David Duchovny and his whisper acting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can be badass if I need to be, but I'd much rather be this. So.
Right. And when you moved to LA, I've seen in other interviews that you had to just kind of completely start from square one, right?
Oh, I did not expect to be acting here.
Oh, no, yeah.
Not at all. You're kind of trained in Canada to. They've got that tall poppy syndrome, where if somebody thinks they're talented and they're growing and they're doing well, they kind of cut you off so that you're the same as everybody else. It's kind of where socialism lives, where everybody's equal, nobody's bigger or lower. It has its pros, but it has its cons. And the cons for me were that it ingrained in me a sense of not being good enough, and that I would never be good enough or talented enough. Mm-hmm. And even one of the directors I worked with, I don't know if it was because he was also trained with the same brainwashing mindset before I left, told me, you're never going to work in LA. The only reason you work here is because you're cheap.
Oh,
that's what he told me.
Wow.
That's what he told me. And what I learned from that experience is that when someone tells you something and it hits you right in that heart place of insecurity, it's not because he said something that was being jerky or mean. It was that what he said, I had already thought about myself and I already believed. So it hit, it landed, where I was like, yeah, he's right. Mm-hmm. Otherwise I wouldn't remember that moment. That moment would have just pinged right off of me. If I had all the confidence in the world, then what he said never would have landed, but it did. And it ate at me. So I quit acting. I went to LA and I quit acting. And I started I thought maybe there would be something else I can do that, I was trying to be grown, I was in my late 20s. I'm like, I can't possibly do cartoons for a living. That can't be what my purpose is. How am I supposed to help the planet by doing cartoons for a living? I
Right.
didn't know. I was looking for my spiritual purpose.
Yep.
And because it had come so easily, so early, I was doubtful that it was true. And what is it called now? Everyone now calls it imposter syndrome.
Yep.
There was no word for imposter syndrome then. That wasn't the thing. But I was feeling it. So I walked away from it and I started doing, any kind of job, and it was miserable for me. Like, I hated every job I did here that wasn't acting. And then out of nowhere, someone contacted my agent in Vancouver, wanted me for a project in LA. That job got me my work visa. It got me an agent. It got me my acting career got handed back to me on a silver platter. And, which let me know it was like the universe going, you're so silly. Why would I spend your whole life training you in this area to not have you do this?
Yeah.
So I know that has been so helpful for me because I went through that experience. Because this career, in any artistic career, you'll know that it has ups where you have a peak where all of a sudden you like Tabitha that year, she had to walk away from NAS where you can't even squeeze in an extra booking. And then you have lulls where nobody wants you, because you've either been overused or for whatever reason, nobody's hiring you right now. You're out of fashion. And then you go back up, it swings back up, and you book all over again. So that experience of walking away and knowing, as a Canadian who in a socialist system, I was always taken care of, but in an American system, not so much.
Yep.
I learned how to survive and make sure that I knew that I could pay my rent, feed myself, and do what I needed to do to get by, and that I wasn't above working and manual labor and all of those things. And it was a really great experience. And I got to meet a lot of amazing human beings.
Mm-hmm.
I got to do character study of human beings that I never would have met staying in Canada. There were so many more people. So by the time I got back into acting, I had a flood of new character inspirations in my toolbox and more Americanized as well. Right. So I'd taken 3 years to just kind of like, because what my interpretation and what I thought was American living in Canada was not even close. And my ego was way out of control, thinking that I knew when I didn't. So being in America, being around Americans really tuned me in to the vibration of the consciousness in America. And I'm so grateful for it. And obviously I love it, because it's been 20 years and I haven't left. And I have been through the ups and downs multiple times. And I know how to survive them because I know how to be patient. I know to just focus on what I love, which is the acting part. I know I can do more than just acting behind a microphone because I've got experience in all the other areas and I can always do those. It's been a glorious career thus far, and I have no intention on quitting anytime soon. So take me to my 90s, baby. Take me to my 90s.
So what was your first role that you got again once you moved to LA and started acting again?
It was for a video game, a Spawn video game. Okay. I got to be in the video game, the Spawn video game, which I was a huge fan of because I watched it on HBO. The series. It was pretty awesome.
I know you started just consistently working.
Yeah. So it was like Spawn. If I remember the first Spawn, what was that fish cartoon? It was a fish cartoon.
The Shark Tale, is that what it is?
That was it. I was in the video game. Shark Tale video game. Nailed it. Thank you. Shark Tale video game. It's Destroy All Humans, I remember. I remember, what was the little squirt dude? Oh, that little, he was really adorable. I don't remember what that game was. Oh, it was really cute. Video games had just started really using voice actors. So I got a lot of those. And that was really, I remember EverQuest. EverQuest was the first video game I got where I got to play over 30 characters, and then I felt like I was back at work. I'm like, bring on another character. Yes, please. Woohoo! I love that. That was pretty dope. Yeah, it was I got I had some crazy God, so long ago. My brain is just like, whoa, remember when?
Yeah.
Yes,
Well, you
forever ago.
well, you were actually two games that were instrumental in potentially preventing me from like harming myself when I was going through bullying when I was growing up.
Oh.
You were in this, the Xenosaga 3,
Yes, yeah, Xenosaga. Yes.
and then your roles in the Dot Hack GU games. Those were like the two things.
Oh, I love that.
Those were the two
I
things.
got to be Sakubo,
Yeah.
those two, and then Arcade. Like
Yep.
those, all three of them, such unique personalities. They were so unique. I remember each one of those characters very clearly in my body. Like I remember being them because
Yeah.
they were just such unique perspectives. Alcade was so altruistic, and so like that was the female role I'd always wanted to play that they had never written by that
Right.
point. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like
Yeah.
I was so used to playing these girly girl, like I said, all the ingenues were always girly girls. I Anybody can sound like this, but who really wants to be this? Not me.
Yeah.
So getting to be totally myself and be like, you know what? I'm a tomboy. Suck it. I really love that so much. And then Saku being so sneaky and then Bo being so sweet and awesome. Like it was just such a
Right.
great threesome. Oh, I loved it. And it was I was the warrior in Xenosaga, right? The warrior voice
Uh,
playable. Oh no, that's
no,
Xenoblade Chronicles. I'm thinking Xenoblade. And who was I in Xenosaga? Can't believe I
it
can't.
was the like little mysterious boy who had all like he was like the source of energy that the bad guys were using. And Abel. Yeah.
Oh, yes, Abel. And I think I was a character named Mai in that game, Mai.
Yeah. Right.
Abel and Mai. Yes. Wow. You're taking me back. Woohoo! I've been around a long time.
Because I think when your voice is Abel, I think that was the first time that I could remember hearing you do a boy voice. It probably wasn't the first, but that's just like the one that I could
I can
remember.
remember. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
what's your process for that? Is it any different than anything else?
No, I have a very strong, like many people, I have a very strong male side to me and female side to me. I don't know if I would call myself non-binary. I think I'm at the age where I've been so brainwashed to be the gender that I was assigned that it never occurred to me. But to like when I sit with non-binary, I don't know if that fits me, but I know that I have no problem going from one side to the other.
Yeah.
And being one side to the other. So no, it's not difficult for me. It's never been difficult for me. Young male characters definitely fulfill a side of me that wants to lean in to that side of me
Yeah.
that I don't get to in this society, but I can through my job, and I
Right.
have been able to through my job. Even in like the cartoon series Wild Grinders, where I got to play the arch nemesis of Rob Dyrdek. He was such a little jerk face. What are you gonna do, slob? I had so much fun playing that character because I definitely was an homage to Kathleen Barr's Kevin character,
Yeah.
but taken up a notch into like total dweeb. He's such a jerk.
Yeah.
It was like Kevin adding like super whiny jerkdom to him,
Yeah.
and like not cool at all. Kevin was cool. Stubford was not cool. He was a jerk, and even that character satisfied every bratty part of me that had always wanted to come out, and I got to get it all out through him. He was
Yeah.
great to play. He's definitely one of my top favorite of all time getting to play because I feel so good after a session after being him for 4 hours.
Right. Well, yeah, because I was curious about your answer to that because I just talked to Wendy Lee
Yeah.
and she said that when she started doing boy voices for anime back in the 90s, it's because I mean she studied she studied Barbara Goodson for a long time.
Yeah.
And then she kind of like
Yeah, I didn't have to access someone else because I already had the characters living within me.
right.
Like I definitely have boy characters living within me.
Yeah. Well, because you were
There's no question.
at that same time you were Ione and Florian and Tales of
Yeah.
this, and those
And
were those were
Sync. Yeah.
those were cool too. Yeah.
Yeah. And each one is different, right? Like, so like each, because I know, again, my real life influences, there are characters that I see that I'm recreating inspirations through the filter that is me. So I do believe, again, gender is a construct. So
Yeah.
the characters are characters regardless of the gender anyway. It's
Yeah.
about what is authentically believable to the character that is being portrayed. I've portrayed characters that the audience reads as female, but in my head it's a male.
Yeah.
Or even that to the audience reads male, but in my head it's a female. So like I might change the gender inside of my head just for me to play with, or change the gender identity, or change the sexuality. I get to do whatever I want in my imagination, and you guys don't get to hear that part. That's private for me to get the character into the pocket that I want the character to live in, that feels authentic to the character and helps bring that character to life.
Right. Well, and I know you said in interviews too that it's not really being voices to you, it's just being a character, because you just think
Exactly.
you
There's
imagine.
this is not acting, right?
Yeah.
You can pitch this. They can use machines to make you sound as different as they want. We've got machinery for that. Mel Blanc, when he was doing Looney Tunes, they pitched his characters so that they would sound different enough from each other.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the sound of the voice that we were in love with Mel Blanc. It was the acting of the characters that we were in love with. The sound can be played with. The
Right.
acting is what we fall for. What if I'm not feeling something as the character, you're not feeling it as the audience member. If you're
Right.
watching an anime and you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, this is really good, except I'm pretty sure that I'm supposed to be feeling, so you can hear the music is playing beautifully, you see the scene, you know what emotion it is they're trying to get you to feel as the audience member, and you're not feeling anything, but you're like, this is entertaining, this is a good performance.
Yeah.
There's a difference between performing and acting. Acting is when you really are feeling it. And when someone's really feeling it, you feel it too as the audience member. You can't help it. You
Yeah.
are gripped by it. That's when you're watching something and they're crying and you're crying. That's when you're watching something, they're cheering and you're cheering. That's when they're watching something, they're laughing and your gut laughing because they're really laughing, and you can't stop yourself. But when they're laughing and it sounds acting from here, sounds right, everything sounds perfect, but you don't feel anything, then that person is performing. They're not acting. You can
Yep.
be a good performer and not be an actor.
Yep. And I think that's why I think too, when I was going through like what I was going through and playing Dot Hack G at that time, and I was,
Yeah.
all
Well,
the
what a great cast. All of that.
yeah.
That whole cast was insane. Such good actors.
Right. And I mean, even being, because I was like 12 or 11, like 12 or 13, but I could tell even then that, this is making me feel something that's like making me feel better, not just, playing a game and all, like it sounds good, like it's actually emotion,
Yeah.
like making me feel better. And yeah, so that was
Yeah, it's a release, right? It's a cathartic release.
right.
It's an energetic release. And that's what art form is meant to be anyway. All art forms are meant to be a form of release and transformation for the viewer, the audience member. Yeah.
So I think that before you got Chie, you got the Danganronpa roles, right? I think that's correct.
You squidged up for me. Before
Oh.
I got Chie, I got what?
Before you got Chie, I think you got the roles in the Danganronpa games first.
No.
Oh,
No.
you did? Okay.
I don't think so. It's hard to tell because like we recorded Catherine before we recorded Golden.
Yeah.
And so the release dates that they put on IMDb aren't accurate to the localization dates, like what
Yep.
got localized first. It was all around the same period, but Chie was with a different company than Danganronpa.
Yep.
So I can only remember the order of the per company, like what I did at each company. So I don't remember when we did, like I don't remember the timeline of Danganronpa's recording sessions in a regards to the
Yeah.
recording, the timeline of Atlas project, because the Atlas projects were all a totally different studio. I remember the order of the Atlas projects, but I don't remember the compared to other studios. It's like each is its own quantum reality.
Yeah.
And I remember the projects per studio, in studio, but not in comparison to each other.
Mm. What was your reaction to when you first stepped into getting the roles in Danganronpa? Because those are just insane for
It
you.
was genius.
Yeah.
Tony Oliver is one of my favorite directors of all time.
Oh, yeah.
When I've worked with that studio, the roles that Tony Oliver has cast me in are the roles that blow up the largest for me, and tend to for that game. His ability to cast is flawless.
Yeah.
So when I remember the auditions, I remember that like it was just like, oh, all of this here, take all of it, which I loved. I'm like, 1,000 different people, sure, I'd love this, thanks. And throwing it into the pot. And when I got in and he told me Amanda Celine Miller, and I was like, oh, nobody's done that. That is genius. And it just made such perfect sense, because we are energetically as human beings in the same pocket.
Yep.
So, and I don't mean by sound, I mean by energy. Like she gives the same energy as me in a room. I give the same energy as her in a room. We're our own ladies. You know what I'm saying? So it was such a great balance, and I loved what he did. I don't want to spoil, so it's really it's hard to talk about because everything is a spoiler, because people are still just playing the game for the first time now, as I've learned. And I went to one stream and they were like, hey, aren't you this role? And I'm like, no, I'm this. Nothing.
Yep.
I'll just shut up now. Well, why did they post you here as this? Nothing.
Yeah.
So I can only talk to people about that project after they know they've played it and they know everything about it. But I loved I move this way and you get I loved that project. Tony is such a brilliant man, and it was so much fun, and I laughed my pants off. It was just so much fun, and then getting to do the games following it it was so much fun. Like those characters will definitely stay with me forever. They were so much fun.
And then one other thing I loved seeing with you specifically in interviews about Persona 4 playing Chie was that you had so much respect not to take away from people who were fans of Tracy.
Yeah, why would I? That's crazy.
Yeah.
She's talented.
And I know.
Yeah. It's just a different tone, right? So casting is such a difficult thing. And they were casting Persona 4 based on Persona 3, and Persona 3 was a dark game. It was a dark game. So when they cast Persona 4, and not just Persona 3, let's be real, all the Shin Megami Tensei up to that point was not happy, or it was very dark, and I had been in a lot of the other titles, and those were darker. And so when they cast for Persona 4, it makes sense that they cast the way they cast based on the tone of Persona 3. Then they finished it, released it, and then they were like, wait a minute, I think we missed the mark on this one. So when they had an opportunity to do Golden, they wanted to really dial into the Scooby-Doo nature, and they hadn't for the Persona 4. And a lot of people love the original Persona 4 because it's in the same lane as Persona 3, so it's not as jarring. If you are a SMT fan and Persona 3 fan, then Golden is going to be way out of the lane. And I knew there was going to be a lot of hate. I mean, I expected a lot of hate for Golden because I knew it was so out of pocket for SMT universe. But luckily, people who stuck with it, they caught on to, it's just a totally different tone, totally different. It's meant to be Scooby-Doo. And once you catch on that it's meant to be Scooby-Doo, you can go on for the ride. And then Persona 5, they went right back to the Persona 3 template of dark, tear your heart out, rip your eyes out. I'm like, recording that was not a happy feeling. Every time I record Chie, it's a happy feeling.
Yeah. Do you think that you're most, out of all your characters that you voiced, do you think that you're most like Chie, personality-wise?
Yeah, that Chie was me.
Yep.
That was how I didn't audition. I didn't audition
Yeah.
at all. Like she just, they were like, okay, Tracy's not going to do the young teenager. We need to recast. Because Tracy's in this mature, she's got this gorgeous mature pocket of sound,
Yep.
and she wasn't, and she's dramatic on camera, brilliant kind of thing. So I guess it just wasn't a fit, her interpretation. And she'd also just recorded the entire game in one tone. So it's really hard after you get attached to a character in one way. It's really hard to flip and go to a different tone. So I remember Val said that she just told the producer, I know Chie in real life. I'm just going to call her in, and you can decide if you want to use her. Because I was, food loving, not necessarily meat specific, but food loving, kung fu watching human being. So I did know all the kung fu movies Chie would have been in love with from the 1970s, Shaw Brothers and everything. Like I'm very well versed in that area because my ex-boyfriend at the time was, ran the Kung Fu Movie Madness website, and I was inundated with kung fu, and we would watch it all the time. So when I walked in, and she was like, just be you at 16. That's all she said to me. Just be you at 16. I'm like, okay. So I did myself at 16. So she has like a tiny slight Canadianisms in there. Like there's a little bit, because that's me. I was in Canada when I was 16, right? So shut up. Gee, what are you going to do? You got to eat more meat. Oh, what the Trial of the Dragon? Don't you even? It was great. I love the first session because I remember we were doing her call outs, and we wanted to make it tribute to Bruce Lee, but we also didn't want to cross the line and get sued by Shannon Lee.
Yeah.
So I called my boyfriend at the time, and because he would know, I'm like, this is what they are having me say, and I feel like they're going to get sued. What can we say instead? And he would help come up with. They already had the Trial of the Dragon, which was perfect, but there was some other of the lines that we just adjusted, so it would be still in the Bruce Lee pocket without pissing off Shannon Lee.
Yeah. And you must have, everybody else who was in Persona 4 Golden, I know those were all like big anime people and big anime video game people, so I think
It's funny that you guys separate things by anime, and that's not how this side of the glass works.
Yeah.
We feel like that's very limiting. Calling somebody an anime actor or a JRPG actor is very actually kind of like, I'm an actor, thanks.
Yeah.
Like I can do a lot more than what they cast me in this tiny little part, and they make me do this for 4 hours. Like, I'm a lot more than this sound, I can do more. So yeah, they were all actors. Everybody in that title were actors that I knew from work. I knew Yuri. We'd worked on a lot of projects together prior to that project. Like we're in throw a rock on my resume. Yuri's playing opposite me. Almost like 30 titles. So Yuri and I had become, he was like one of my very first cartoon bookings, which I can't even remember the name of the series. He was sitting next to me and we were doing additional characters, and that's where we met. And we became very close best friends after that. Like, he's my brother. He is for real my brother in this life. He is my brother, which makes Tara my sister by proxy, sister-in-law. So and they've been really close. So when I found out that Yuri was Yosuke to my Chie, that just made so much sense. And then it made it really easy for me to perform, right? So anything opposite Yosuke, in my head, I'm thinking of Yuri and how I would really be with Yuri.
Mm-hmm.
So none of that, I mean, is it acting? Is it just me being me? I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. I love the contrast in like you're starting at the beginning of your role, starting at the beginning of the characters that you played in video games up until now. Like it's so, starting with Abel being one of the first in Xenosaga, just like a mysterious little boy, up to Danganronpa and Chie.
Yeah. And as I get older, it's like I unlock levels. I'm achievement unlocked, achievement unlocked. So for every year I get older, more characters get unlocked in my ability to play them more authentically, because I've had the life experiences of someone in a particular age range now. So now that allows me, so I have so much more depth to bring and so much more truth to bring. I'm getting older as an actor is probably the only career that is an amazing thing if you don't have to, now that we're changing how it is for women. Hopefully my generation of actress is changing how it will be for the 20-year-olds, so they don't have to stay perfectly skinny and be sex objects until they're 70, which is ridiculous. Because men can have careers forever and always have. We want that. My generation of actors is not walking away from this. We're not getting married and having kids and then quitting our jobs. Like that is ridiculous. We're still here. So that means that we get to mature into the maturation of the writing that is coming, where they're actually getting better female roles, where that used to be all men. Now they're realizing, oh, guess what? Women can carry this stuff too. Isn't that crazy? It's like a miracle. So it's really exciting. It's exciting right now. I always knew in my 20s that I wanted to be an actress in my 40s. That was my big dream, was to be in my 40s, because I knew I would have the experiences that my level of performance would improve, because I would be able to believe myself as the characters more. And that's what you have to do. You have to believe you are the characters in order to sell the characters.
So then when you just said that when you were recording Persona 5, that was kind of like an emotionally dark thing for you, because weren't you evil, like the
I was the abusive mom.
That
was awful. Yes, I did not like her at all. I played her really good, but I don't want to play that video game. No, thank you. Plus all the subject matter, like it was like 2 years before the 2016 election, and it was kind of bang on accurate in its prediction of what was going to happen here anyway. It was so creepy. It was just so creepy and so dark, and the characters would have to go through such dark things, and I was like, ooh, this isn't Scooby-Doo at all.
Right. So then,
but I'm proud of my work.
And
I know I've horrified many a person, and I apologize for the trauma. It is definitely trigger warning.
I was going to ask you too about all the different characters that you played in Bleach, because that's a big.
Oh my god, I played 8 characters in Bleach. That was so much fun. And Wendy Lee directed me in Bleach. That was such a good time. I was Mizuho I was a little kid named Kaigo first, and then Mizuho, and then Mila Rose. Then there's I did like 4 Zanpakutos. That's right. So that was a great show. That was fun.
This is just a general question too, but how long did it take you before you started becoming personally becoming a fan of anime, or like watching it once you started getting?
I don't.
Oh, you don't?
I don't watch anime. No. Okay. No, I don't watch anime. I watch Miyazaki films, which I love, but I don't watch anime because it feels like work.
Oh.
It feels like work. I can't watch anything that feels like work. I can't. That's why I don't play video games that I'm in, really. And I definitely don't play video games that are voiced, because it feels like work. If I have to play video games that are voiced, it has to be really, really funny, and it has to hit my I have to laugh a lot, because I can't. All I'm doing is listening to performances, watching lip flaps, and it's not enjoyable. It's not enjoyable. When I'm at work, I want to love my job. When I'm not working, I need to fill myself with things that aren't work, so I can be inspired to find new places to go to as an actor. So I watch a lot of, I do love comedy. Well, comedy is definitely my thing, but I watch a lot of reality stuff, so I learn characters. I'm looking at characters all the time. I'm looking for inspiration to be new characters, and for me, characters come from real people. So watching real people gives me source material. constantly. So yeah, that's why I don't watch. I'm always fascinated by people who watch. I'm like, don't you feel like you're working, like you spend all this time, and especially if you're also writing and adapting it, and then you want to watch it on top, like, oh, that's workaholism to me. No, no. Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Well,
I might like put aside some, like I watched Bleach. I
yeah.
enjoyed watching Bleach. But I watched Bleach because my boyfriend watched Bleach. It
Oh,
wasn't because I was like, let's put Bleach on
yeah.
type of a thing, right? So like it's the same. So any anime I watch, it's usually because somebody else in the room wants to watch it. And I'll be like, okay, you know, like I remember enjoying Soul Eater. I loved Samurai Champloo. That
Yep.
one I really loved. That one because the music carried it, and I didn't feel like I was at work watching it at all because you know, the two male leads just were so great. But mostly I don't watch. Yeah,
Okay.
because it's too work related to me.
Do you not like, are you kind of feel like, do you kind of feel weird when you hear yourself in something? Is that part of it?
No, it does. I don't bother myself because I remember the feeling of I know the circumstances, right?
Yeah.
I know when I'm in the booth, I know whether I had a good director, a new director, or a bad director. I know whether the client was pushing for hurry, 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 you don't get any takes, and I know if I only got one take. I know if I got the script the night before and I had time to prepare, or if I was getting 1,000 lines cold read. So
Yeah.
I can give myself a lot of breaks. Usually if I hear my performance and I know exactly the situation was in terms of the direction, the script, and all that, I'll be like, not bad considering. You know,
Yeah.
like when I think of all of the limitations of like, well, you went in, you had a cold, you were throwing up every 3 takes, and wow, you not bad considering. But nobody knows all that information, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't bother myself in my performances so much. But I do note it, like I can tell. I know when I'm not feeling something. I know if I perform something. I know if I phoned it in. I know if if I had to cheat. I know all of those things. So then when I'm listening to other people, I'm listening. Oh, they didn't feel that. Oh, I don't. But I don't buy them. Oh, they can do so much better. Oh, you know, like I don't want to judge my friends. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? And because it's my job to always look for a better performance from myself, when I hear other people doing what I do, I can't help but demand and expect more from them.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love it when I hear them in their pocket. I'm like, oh yeah, they just nailed that. Oh, that was awesome. But I don't like it. In fact, I avoid discovering things or performances from my friend because I don't know their situation.
Yeah.
I don't know. In my head, I'm like, I don't know who was directing. I don't know if they got the scripts in time. I don't know. Like it could be all of those things. That is the reason why a performance is the way it is.
Well, because I've seen you say too, where for you that if you don't feel something all the way down to your body during a audition, then you don't typically get that role.
Yeah, and I'm at the point where I don't even submit it anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
If I don't feel it, there's no point in submitting it because it's not going to get. I don't want to do that role apparently.
Yep. Right.
If my heart isn't in it, then that role is meant for another actor, and I'm okay with that because there's more than enough work to go around, and the roles that come to me are perfect for me.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't even realize until I looked back at everything that you got to be in the other Shin Megami Tensei games. Like,
Yeah, lots of them.
yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, like Shin Megami Tensei 4, where you were just a bunch of monsters
Yep.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you not really a fan of the like darker SMT games? Or can you still
I'm an empath. As an
Okay.
empath, I don't like dark content in general to
Yeah.
watch. Performing it, I can do. I can act any level in any darkness, and I can go into the darkness and come out for sure as an actor. But as an audience member, I can't. I can't be the audience member. If it's not something I'm experiencing, I can't. I don't want it. I don't want it in my space. I've gotten really good at going into the darkness and coming out like it's like I'm made of Teflon. So I put the character on, I go to the very, very dark place, I perform what I needed to perform, I feel what I needed to feel, and then when I come out, whoosh, it flicks right off, and I'm back to being me.
Right.
And that's the job. So I'm really good at my job, but in my time off, I don't want to spend any time in those places for fun. That's not fun to me. That's
Yeah.
work. That's my job. I go there for my job because I'm very good at my job.
And so, what was it like stepping for you? What was it like stepping into working on Sailor Moon?
Oh, that was fun. That's like popcorn for me, right? Like that, getting to, and I mean, it's so funny because I'm like, every time I'm called in, I'm always the person that they're going to kill. So I played so many of the bad guys that come in, like so many. I mean, there was at least 30 different and they're not all listed on my, like, it's hard to keep track of all of them.
Yeah.
There's so many. So I've been killed by the Sailor Moon squad so many times. Like I go in, I'm like this. I'm starting to feel like the guy in Scooby Doo that's like, and I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you rascally kids. That's what it felt like to me. So I'm like, who do I get to be today? Oh, this awesome villain. Oh, she's so awesome. Oh, she's so bad. They killed me again. You know, so I got really resentful towards Sailor Moon and her crew because they kept murdering me, and I'm like, I come back in all these amazing forms.
Yeah.
Rotten girls. I really enjoyed that series. That series fun. It's a fun series. It's silly, it's fun. I enjoyed it.
Did you know of the popularity of the series before you started?
Yeah, of course. I'd heard of it, and I met some of the actors from it, from the original dub in Canada. I knew some of them, but not Katie, but some of the others, like Sugar. But yeah, but I wasn't familiar. No.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that
I hadn't seen it.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna say that. Yeah, you were like the perfect person to play. You dial too. Just that's totally your kind of role.
Yeah, she was fun. Yeah, I can say I like those roles though. I like being evil. Being evil is fun. Being boss characters, I'll be a boss character any day. I'll take a boss character over the ingenue any day. Much more character development, a lot more screaming. I'm a great screamer, but it'd be a waste of these chops not to get me to scream. Some people can't. I can. Use me.
Well, because that was one thing I remember as when you were in Xenosaga too, because it's not. I mean, he's technically not a boss, but there's like one of the bad guys. One of the bosses uses Abel. He uses like his power, and then every time that he does his most powerful move, he uses Abel's energy, and every time that happens, like it's you screaming in a little boy voice. So that was like one of the things that I remembered. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I scream a lot. If I get people, the review I get the most for me online from strangers is she's annoying. I'm like, you're welcome. Yeah. That was probably my job. I was probably supposed to be. Probably. That's why they hired me. I'm very good at annoying. Yeah. I don't mind. Annoying in the way where you can't get enough.
Yeah. Right. I didn't mention another game around that I played a lot was you were in Soccer Wars.
Oh my God, yes. Type me all the way back. When they cast inappropriately, you're welcome.
Yeah.
But I didn't say no to a job, back then. I didn't say no to a job. I was new to LA, so any job, I'm like, yes, I'll take it. Thank you.
Do you remember that role very well?
Yeah. Yep. Sharon.
Yep. Yeah.
I remember. I remember because I was like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. And it felt, because for anybody watching, she's a Black character.
Yeah.
And they hired me to play, and same with Mila Rose in Bleach, and both cases. And anytime I've been cast as a Black character, up until the point where I just started saying no, and I'd start giving, because once I started meeting Black actors who did voiceover, I started just handing them over to the casting director. I'm like, no, you don't want me for this. No, you want this person. But I didn't, at that time, I didn't know any Black actors. And they gave me the line that there aren't any Black voice actors, which was not true. Yeah. Not true at all. But coming from Canada, I didn't know. Right. And in Canada, again, it's not like America. So my best friends who are Black in Canada sound like me because they're Canadian. Yep. So there's no there's no pockets of dialect that like that in America that's used as a form of discrimination. The dialects within America people are bigoted towards all the different dialects, you know, race, no race. But in Canada, everyone sounds Canadian. So I was like, well, I'm just going to approach this as I would, you know, as a Canadian and make them Canadian.
Yeah.
So that was my answer to racism, was like, everybody's Canadian. But even that, you know, obviously, the longer I stayed in America, the more of my friends here, I have a very large circle of Black friends here. The more they were very helpful in educating me on the truth of the situation and the truth of what goes on here. And I was able to educate myself out of my extreme ignorance, and I still do every day. But Sharon, I was really proud of, at least because I thought, well, at least you've got a white girl playing a Black character, and I'm a white girl who actually has Black friends. As opposed to a white actor who has no Black friends, who has never been around anybody outside of their white race, and playing a race that is so foreign to them that they wouldn't know who to be, how to be. So I felt like, from my nieces and nephews that are Black, I feel like, okay, I look back at those credits and go, well, at least I was doing it to represent the Black women I knew in my life, even though I'm not Black, and I would never do that again. I think after 2007, it was around 2007 where I made a hard no more, and started, because what would happen is I didn't audition for those roles, right? I would just get called, hey, you've got a role, here's the name of the character. I'd show up, and it wouldn't be until I showed up that I'd be shown what the character looked like. And then by then it's like, I'm already depending on the money. I need to pay my rent, whatever because games paid a lot better than dubbing. So I felt trapped. And then I learned to ask. I had to start asking and just saying no. And that's a sticky situation. And some actors still haven't learned to say no. And they, I guess history will, I wanted to be on the right side of history, man. I don't want to be that one. I don't want to be a Karen because I'm an Erin.
Yeah. Was that role as Sharon initially, was that kind of difficult for you, considering
No, I actually there were two girlfriends I had in university that ended up becoming not university, high school, that ended up becoming lawyers. So I just and they were Black women. They were Black women I knew in Canada, so I used them as the inspiration for her. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, because I know that's why I try to make friends from everybody in the world, so I could be like, okay, like one of my favorite human beings is a Polish woman named Ava. She was really close friends with me until she moved away, and she's one of my favorite characters to have a character based on her, because I love her so much. So yeah, I stick to those European, British, Scottish, Irish, Canadian, American white people now. Or robots.
Yeah, right. So what's your, out of all the Tales games that you've worked on, what's your favorite, do you think?
Oh, well, Zillia, we had a good time. Tipo was a really fun character.
Yeah.
And the sessions were so hilarious, and we had such a good time recording those sessions. I remember everybody in those sessions. I remember the jokes. I remember, like, there's a lot of secret footage that studio still has. That was so awesome. We had such a good time. But I do remember Abyss was the first one I think I did. I think it was Abyss that was my first Tale.
Right, yeah.
And I do remember it. I remember it because it was my first time at that studio, really.
Mm-hmm.
It was really good. And I love that studio. I love the women there. They're very amazing.
I know you have a close connection with Fire Emblem too.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm in Awakening and Heroes, but when the video game strike happened and I gave up had gone FI-Core because I like working on indie stuff. Yep. I really liked working on independent games, and there were no union contracts for independent games, but I didn't want to get in trouble with the union, so I decided to go FI-Core so I could do non-union and union. And then the video game strike happened, and I was like, okay, because what had happened was by doing both union and non-union, it allowed the non-union rates to plummet.
Yeah.
because they were like, oh, we can get the same people and we can pay them even less. So it was almost like, wait a minute, because when I started doing non-union, the rates were the same as the union. They were paying us the exact same as the union was paying us.
Oh,
They were just calling it non-union, so they didn't have to do the paperwork.
yeah.
And then slowly but surely the rates started tumbling. And by the time the strike happened, I was done with the tumbling, and I hated the disrespect. And I was seeing discrepancies on contracts. Like, I would get paid what I would fight to be paid, and the person coming in after me was getting paid like this much for a big part in the same game. And I'm like, well, that's not okay.
Right.
And that kind of shady business hadn't gone on before that I had seen. So I got rid of my FICOR status, went full union, which meant I had to walk away from all the Fire Emblem stuff. So, but because of the union, a lot of that stuff ended up, because of the strike, a lot of that stuff in the non-union world became union. So there were other titles that flipped to union because they wanted to have the union cast back. Those of us who had been non-union, who went without 100% union, they wanted us back. So in order to have us, they had to be union. So, and they created an indie contract so that independent games could hire union talent, but pay a smaller rate, but it would still be a union contract.
Yeah.
And then they created a low budget gaming contract for the same thing. So that gaming strike was a big deal. And so there's no excuse for games to be non-union anymore. Not even indie games. If you have an indie game, you can have union talent. You just have to go through the union and get that indie contract, and you can pay, you know, those low rates for indie projects. It's literally possible now. Now we have the contracts. When I started working here, we didn't have those contracts, and I wanted to work. I love working on independent projects. I love helping people like Skullgirls. That I was a big part of a team effort to build that game and to get it into, like, it was a teamwork makes the dream work kind of a thing. I love that stuff. Right. So now that we have a good indie contract, I can work on other people's projects and I feel guilt-free, which is really nice. It's really nice. And that's the only reason why I gave up my Fire Emblem status. And why I'm not in houses is because I needed to be full union.
Mm-hmm. I want to go backwards here too. One leading anime role that I don't think I've ever seen you get asked about at all is Skip Beat.
That was so much fun.
Yeah,
that was an indie project. They were so great. They did the union contract. That was so much fun. I really love that. That was a great project because I mean, Lee, she's such a dolly face. I love her. She's so sweet. She's such a heart. Oh yes, I really enjoyed that project. That was fun.
I'm surprised that it doesn't really get mentioned with interviews with you. I mean, I know not a whole lot of people know about that show, but I mean, it's a wholesome series.
It is wholesome.
It's got a good cast,
Yeah, I enjoyed that project a lot. That was fun.
So you probably have a lot of stuff that you're working on now that can you talk about much of it or no?
Well, I've got an autograph. I don't know when is this airing. I don't know when you're going to air this. I don't know if it's airing right now. I have no idea.
Oh no, I was uploaded afterward to YouTube.
So, okay, great. So on Friday, November 27th, there's going to be a live autograph signing with Yuri Lowenthal and me. Oh. So we're doing on Instagram Live, and we've never done a signing together before. Yeah. And remember, he is my brother. So I expect that whether or not you're getting an autograph, I have a feeling that could be a good time. Right. Anyway. And then on Saturday, November 28th, I've been performing for the last two years. I've been rehearsing a one-woman version of The Wizard of Oz, where it's just me performing the classic movie with no props, no set, no costumes. 27 characters, 80 pages of dialogue, all out of my face. So it's me being. It's my opus. It's me being the actor that I am, doing what I do best in the world. And the last performance I did live was 3 days before the Los Angeles lockdown for COVID. And we recorded it. It was a live performance in Portland and we recorded it. So on Saturday, the 28th at 1 p.m., we're going to stream it. Yeah. And audience members can watch it with me. I'll be watching it for the first time. I haven't watched the performance yet. This will be my first time watching my own performance. And then we'll do a Q&A after. And then from the November 29th to December 5th, it's going to be available for video on demand. If people want to see me do what I do, if you've always wondered what I look like behind a mic, literally this show is what I do behind a mic, just on a stage.
That's cool.
Like if you heard me act out the entire Wizard of Oz, it's basically what it is. So that's what I'm promoting this week. That's plenty.
Okay. I guess the last thing I could ask you is, when people that are already fans of yours, or people that are becoming fans of yours from hearing your new roles or your roles from back then, what do you want your legacy to be?
That I made you feel better.
Okay.
That watching my work made you feel better in some way, whatever way that is. I feel like my purpose here is to uplift. That's my purpose in whatever way, whether it's diving deep into the ugly so that you don't feel alone, or whether it's to open your heart so you can lift yourself out of the place you were. I play characters in a way that are authentic to the characters so that you can see yourself in the character, and hopefully find a different shift your perspective a little bit that makes your day better in some way. That's
a great answer, because I like I said, with how important the Xenosaga 3 game and the Dot Hack game,
that means a lot to me. Yeah, that means a lot to me. That means, I mean, I don't know when stuff like that happens for my work, but when I hear about it, then it makes my work feel important and worthwhile. Like that younger version of me, straight out of Canada, going, how can I change the world doing cartoons and video games?
Yeah.
And then I hear stories like that remind me that I do have a purpose. That is my purpose. And that's an important purpose. And I am grateful to play that role in somebody's life.
I was curious what your opinion is, because I think some people might have different answers, that there seems to be anime, or like anime games, and like overall they seem to have a bigger connection to people emotionally and making them feel better, or preventing them from hurting themselves or whatever. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think it's just because that's the content people are watching. The content that I watch does the same for me.
Okay. Yeah.
So whatever you are watching will do that for you, most likely. Like I watch the Star Trek series, all of them. That every time I watch Star Trek, that's what it does for me. It uplifts me. It makes me feel better. It makes me feel like I'm connected to my emotions. It allows me to process and learn about friendships and stuff. Anime has never done that for me personally. So I think it's a matter of what people connect with. I don't think it matters whether it's anime or Western animation or drama, live action, or whatever, or music, or painting, whatever art form it is that connects you to what you just described, whatever is getting you there, then that's the thing that you should be putting all of your energy into. Absolutely. Right. And I'm happy that anime and JRPG, I think JRPGs are different because you're spending so much time, and it doesn't matter if it's a JRPG or a Western game, but video games, like for me, my favorite game is Overwatch. I've spent, a good 1,000 hours in Overwatch, because that's what that game gives me. It uplifts me. The character interactions and the characters and how cartoony and bright it is. I love it so much. I understand how people feel about JRPGs because of my experience with Overwatch. It's because you're spending so much time with the characters, they feel like they're your best friends. You spend that much time with anybody, you're interacting and you're saving the world over and over again, and you're saving lives, and I've got you, I'll protect you. You say that enough times for 80 hours, it's going to wire you in some way where you feel really connected. That just makes sense to me. So I think video games does that on a totally different level than anything where you're a passive audience member. I think video games are much more powerful in that aspect, and therefore the performers have a much greater responsibility.
Yep. Well, thank you. This has been fun. I'm glad I got to ask you stuff that I don't think anybody else has asked you.
Yeah, it was good. Thank you.
I'll be sure to send you the link once I get it uploaded and post it everywhere on my side too.
I will post it absolutely on all the socials and all the socials.
Okay, great. Thank you.